Welcome to the Restoring Balance podcast, where two lifelong friends get together to rewatch and discuss why they love Avatar: The Last Airbender. I'm Mike.
And I'm Jim. Today we're discussing Book 1, Episode 3, The Southern Air Temple. This episode is a lot more informative and just better than I remember it being.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. Rewatching it, this is a really good episode.
Yeah.
And I think it just went on the radar for me on my other watches.
Yeah. I mean, I always knew it was a good episode. I've seen the show however many times. It's just this new perspective that you and I are getting from preparing a podcast and just being in analysis mode all the time has really opened my eyes to what these episodes are going for. Even the intro shows us Gyatso for the airbending piece, and this is a Gyatso episode. So as soon as it started, I was like, oh yeah, we're about to meet that guy and learn about him, and here we are.
Yeah, the silhouetted benders in the intro, they're actually people like from the show.
Yep.
Yeah, I did not know that, like, multiple watches of this show, and I think it took me until you told me. You're like, did you? And I was like, oh, it's probably, is Aang in there or somebody?
I want to say the first time that you noticed that, we were like trying to guess what character said something, and I was like, she's in the intro or something.
And I was like, impossible. There's nobody in the intro.
Yeah. Oh, I wish I knew the full story there. I have a couple other interesting pieces of the intro to this episode too, being this is the first time that Roku has told us.
Previously on Avatar.
This is the first.
Previously on Avatar.
Yeah, and it came sooner than I ever remember it. You know, this one always catches me off guard.
Previously on Avatar.
But I don't think it's ever explicitly said that it is Roku's voice actor, but it was a very necessary component for this show, right? It was on Nickelodeon. All of their shows were self-contained stories in a singular episode, whereas this show, part of the reason they sought out a show like it was because they wanted something that had an overarching story over a long period of time. And Avatar checked that box, at least, right? And I think one of their worries for viewers was to make sure that they remembered what they're watching.
Yeah, if they're releasing it every week, and if you miss one, like, what is going on? And
Right.
especially because of the way there's different storylines. It's a complex show. There's a bunch of characters. There's a lot going on. So
Yep.
it's kind of necessary to sort of remind the viewer, without being too heavy-handed, of what plot lines we're kind of going to be touching on today.
Mm-hmm. Whenever somebody asks me, or whenever the idea of the previously on Avatar comes up, I always think of season 2. And whenever I do think of them, I'm like, wow, they really chose the best scenes for like the prerequisite information to just have locked in going into this episode. They did a great job.
It's definitely in the same vein as other animes. I know Avatar is not really an anime, but all those other animes like Hunter x Hunter and Dragon Ball, they have their previouslys, but I think they do it a lot more heavy-handedly. So they kind of just hit you with a ton of info, and it's like really obvious. It's kind of exactly what's going to happen in the whole episode based on what they said. But I think Avatar handled it really well. They put in like poignant quotes and important like character moments, and it's not entirely obvious how that's going to like affect the current episode.
Right.
You know?
Right. They're almost like tasteful in how concise they are.
Quite tasteful.
And the last thing I was going to say about the intro to this episode.
You're still talking about the intro? You're still on the intro, dude? When are we going to talk about the episode, bro?
Dude, the intro here was serious, man.
It was groundbreaking.
We're in analysis mode. I'm telling you. This episode writes its title and book number and everything like that on a screen that has a background. All of the other times that we see the episode's title, it's a white background.
Yeah, that's the inspiration for part of our logo for the podcast.
Yep.
That's why we have that white background. And of course, we have the beautiful border they have on like all their maps and stuff. But
that was a lot of work. Really, really great time though.
why didn't they go with the white? Is there any like info about that you're aware of? What was the background? I guess is my first question.
It was just like a sunset over a horizon. I think it goes in line with what we were talking about in our previous episode about how in the intro, the long intro in the first episode, how there are things in there that don't necessarily align with how they're presented in the rest of the show, right? So I think their lack of a complete plan, even though it was very complete, the fact that it wasn't maybe 100%, I think showed in that intro. And I think this is in that same boat.
This is the last mistake they'll ever make. All right. After this, they figured everything out.
Yeah, I do feel like truly, like after this episode, we get into a mode where everything feels familiar. I know it's still the first season, so the first time viewers would be getting to know the characters, but I think the characters really do fall into their own now that, you know, their arcs are established, their idiosyncrasies are on display.
Yeah. That's enough about the intro, man. We got to get to the real meat of the episode.
Dude, come on.
Okay. And all the listeners want to know about the animals they mentioned, okay? Right off the bat, pow pow, 2 animals right in your face, okay? We got a prickle snake, not pictured, but alluded to. What is a prickle snake? I don't know. Is it like a porcupine snake? Impossible to tell, really.
I envision a snake that's just got spikes poking out of it.
Yeah, so kind of like a porcupine snake.
Yeah.
And then Aang burns all of the blubbered seal jerky. So apparently those seals we saw before are blubbered seals.
That's a good point.
Yeah. And that concludes animal talk for this episode.
Mike and his animals. Sokka's so upset when he learns that Aang has just burnt away all of his food.
That's a hilarious move from Aang.
Oh, that was food? I used it to start the campfire last night. Sorry.
Ew, what? Aww.
And I get it too, because he's a vegetarian, so he probably doesn't know what like prepared meat smells like. His whole culture was veggies and fruits, right?
Yeah.
So he's like, I just thought it was some sweet smelling wood, you know, and it's like believable.
Yeah. And the fact that he hasn't eaten anything in 100 years. You know, although it doesn't feel like that to him. But while they're on Appa, Aang it still seems to be in denial. You know, he's excited as they make their way to the temple to show off how cool of a place it's going to be to his friends.
Cool, more like beautiful, dude.
Yeah.
My God. Oh my, like, I don't think Avatar would be as good as it is if it didn't have such inspirational locations. And like, in the forefront of that are the air temples, right? They're pretty incredible. This one is like a majestic castle in the sky, dude.
It's awesome.
I really wish, I was trying to find the other day like a 3D model of the temple. I couldn't find one. I didn't look that hard, but I doubt somebody spent like a ton of time because it was very intricate, you know, it was like a castle.
When we were rewatching this episode, Mike was like, pause that. Can you just pause that for a sec? On the shot where they finally get to the temple. And I gotta say, it was worth pausing for. Yeah, so as they make their way there, Aang has just said all these things about, you know, how great it's going to be, how cool the people are, how I think when they get there, he's upset about how like it's not full of life anymore, right? He's just not accepting yet of what he learned in the last episode about how we are at war and how airbenders are extinct and how he was frozen for 100 years.
Well, who can blame him? I mean, there hasn't been a lot of proof other than what these Water Tribe members have told him. And it's like, sure, you could take that about as far as you can throw it, but it's like, come on, guys, I just saw him yesterday. Let's go check it out.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, it's true. And his confidence, you know, especially as they make their way there, he mentions the only way to get to an air temple is by flying bison. And while they do have a flying bison to get there, we know that the airbenders were wiped extinct during a time where Sozin's comet was in full bloom, if you will.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing as you during that. I was like, ooh, Aang, I like where your head's at, but that's a really sad story
Yeah.
that you're gonna have to find out.
Right. Having seen the show all the way through before, we've seen what these firebenders are capable of during Sozin's comet, and they can like literally fly. And if that's the requirement to get to an air temple, well, they have that box checked.
And then they make all those blimps
Yep.
for the new Sozin's comet, but we'll get to it, guys. We'll
Yep.
get to it.
Big time.
Is this the first episode where it's that dual story? We follow Zuko for half of it and we follow Aang for half of it, and they don't even interact? Is this the first episode where we've had that?
Yeah, I guess this would be one where they don't interact.
Yeah, so this is the first time we get the classic, the two stories in one, where it's like we have two main characters. And I didn't realize that as a kid. I always thought, it's Aang's story, right? This Zuko guy, what is he doing? But watching it back, you realized it's obvious. From the beginning, he's a protagonist. Like, if I was really paying attention, you could probably call his change of heart from very early in the show. Because it's like, he's the hero in his own story. He has a lot of struggle. Like, he suffers. There's a lot of struggle. He proves himself to be a good person a lot of times. And he has a lot of great qualities like tenacity, determination. And he's doing it to gain the love of his family.
Right. He's not doing it for a bad reason necessarily.
He's just very misguided.
Absolutely.
But these are my favorite types of episodes.
Mm-hmm. These are my favorite types of characters. Good reasons, misguided, learning to overcome those things. It's what I'm here for every time.
You can probably learn the most from characters like that for yourself. Because you see how they go wrong. You can understand how someone with good intentions gets lost and can be redeemed.
Yeah. And when it's done as well as this is, it's so easy to learn that lesson for yourself or relate to it. I tell you what, we've talked about it before, but I credit a lot of the lessons that I've taken to heart throughout my life to this very show.
That is something that I sort of envy about you. Is just you learn the lessons from fiction and you actually apply them to your life. Right. I watch a movie or a show and oh, that was great. Love the characters, really inspirational, really cool. But I sort of it's removed from real life for me. I have a hard time applying those lessons to my life. What I like to do is you know me, but I like to listen to scientists and experts and learn all the lessons from that. I'll read about philosophers or meditation practitioners or all those sorts of stuff and try to internalize their lessons and learn from that because it feels more real to me. But the truth of the matter is fiction is packed with truth. And when it's made well like this, it's sort of condensing those lessons and giving it to you in a more salient form. Like when you follow the story of a person, it sticks with you. And I just reject that while you embrace it and you reap the benefits.
Mm-hmm. I wouldn't say you reject it, though. You certainly know it's there, especially by now talking to me as much as you do.
I just let it go really easily. I hold on to all...
You do appreciate it, though.
I appreciate it, and I think it's beautiful. But I let it go, whereas when I hear something from a scientist or an expert, I'm like, oh, yeah, write that down. Write that down.
I think I have always done it because, as a kid, I would see these heroes, that had their shows, and I wanted to be like them, right? Who doesn't want to be a superhero?
Seems like a lot of responsibility.
Yes, superheroes can do amazing things, but they have it hard.
I do not want to be a hero.
I guess you could say I still want to, And yes, they have it hard, but if you're gonna be capable of such amazing things, you're gonna go through difficult things too. You have to in order to gain the skills and abilities to become as incredible as a superhero.
You're only as strong as what you've overcome.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful, truly beautiful that they're able to do that so well in a kid's show. And it made it through to me as a kid and still now as an adult.
It reminds me of what we talked about in our intro episode, where I talked about how this was a show I could sit down with my dad, who didn't grow up on cartoons really. We're from different generations, of course, but he could sit down and enjoy the show because of there were actually lessons and like the characters were believable.
It's like this YouTube video that I saw of Mark Hamill. It wasn't about Avatar in particular, but it was some company's YouTube page that they were interviewing him about his like famous works, and they asked him about Avatar, and he said the first thing he remembered thinking about this show was that it was too smart, and he didn't think it would be successful because of how smart it was.
That's funny. That's a funny angle.
Right.
Too smart to be successful.
Yeah. He was so glad that it was, though. It was so cool to see his enthusiasm for that.
He voices the Fire Lord?
Yes.
Yeah. And he does a great job.
He sure does.
He does. I didn't realize it was him, ever. You pointed it out to me.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, remind you of anyone? Because you're always point out Mark Hamill and everything. You point out everybody and everything, but
yeah, man.
Mark's and everything.
Yeah. But, I mean, just lessons from a hero or not, what brought us to this was talking about Zuko, right? It's, in my opinion, why we need heroes and why it's important to hold them in high value in the media that is consumed, especially by kids. If they have something to aspire to be or look up to like that, then they would embody those values and live that way. But getting back to Zuko and Iroh's piece of this episode, it starts with introducing a great villain for this season, and they really introduce him well in Zhao.
He is a great villain. He's the real villain for the first arc, not Zuko. Zuko's the secret hero. He's the, what do we call that? He's like an anti-hero? What is he?
I would say so, yeah.
And then Zhao is the actual villain, culminating in a beautiful finale. I won't talk about it now, because I will talk about it later.
Yeah. Well, I mean, his intro here is just awesome. It's so great.
You can't ask for a better way to introduce a villain.
Yeah. They walk up, and Zuko's just like, Captain Zhao. And the first thing he says is, it's Commander now. It's like,
just a slap in the face immediately.
Yeah. Just establishing a power dynamic in this altercation with those words, just right off the bat.
Zuko's the son of the Fire Lord, right?
Yeah.
Like, he knows he's banished, but still.
Yep. He's like nothing to Zhao, and you can tell. He's so sarcastic and scary, and he just like commands respect.
Oh, yeah.
With his voice acting. The voice acting is fantastic.
Yeah, it's like the voice actor recorded it with a smirk on his face.
Yes.
I wouldn't doubt it if
100%.
he actually did.
Yes. He talks like we're all playing a game he knows he's going to win.
Oh, yeah. Tons of confidence. And that is, honestly, that is turned on him in the end.
Yep. It sure does. But, I mean, when they transition to Zhao's altercation with Iroh, it's respectful. Iroh, great hero of our nation, right? He demands the respect, but he's also willing to give it. And that's an explicit form of respect. He has addressed Iroh as a hero.
Oh, yeah.
Said the words, right? But what is more subtle is that when Zhao invites them in, Iroh suggests, or doesn't suggest, he demands that Zuko shows Zhao his respect.
Yeah, Zuko wants to turn him down.
Right.
Zuko doesn't want any tea.
Yeah, Zuko wants to get back on that boat, fixed up, and go to chase the Avatar again so bad.
Yeah, but he's sort of choreographing it to Zhao by how impatient he is.
Yes, he sure is. And we've talked about how smart we think he is. But, I mean, it makes sense, to have had 3 years worth or however long he's been out there searching for the Avatar and he finally found him. Nothing else matters to him right now. He couldn't care less about sitting down at the docks with Zhao to drink tea.
Oh, 100%.
And they can't even explain what the damages to their ship are.
Yeah, that's crazy, dude.
Oh my god. Zhao asks them, wow, that's quite a bit of damage. And
That's a lot of
he doesn't
damage.
even ask for a story necessarily. But Zuko and I were like,
Yeah, we ran into the Earth Nation ship. Yeah. And then, wait, how'd we do it, Iroh?
It was incredible. What happened exactly? Oh my gosh. But yeah, they go with an Earth Kingdom ship that they crashed into. And I don't know about you, Mike, but I've seen this show a couple times all the way through. And I can't say I've ever seen an Earth Kingdom ship. What about you?
It's because they all ran into Fire Nation ships and sunk.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's what I've been led to believe, at least.
Gave them all quite a bit of damage, huh?
Yeah. Well, first of all, the Earth Nation is not united like the Fire Nation. They are separate kingdoms and cities.
Yeah.
And not one of them that we've heard of is on the water.
Yep.
All the big cities are actually surrounded by Earth, if you can believe it.
Yeah. Actually stick to the land part of things and kind of avoid the water. Which is interesting to think about, actually. The Fire Nation has, or at least utilized their industrialization
To conquer the water.
conquer the seas, yeah. It has allowed them to, take steps in a direction that the previous world that they lived in they would have just thought, yeah, the seas are for the water tribes, But the Fire Nation, in their efforts to expand, have not only waged war with these other nations, they've
pushed the technological envelope.
Yeah, they've made it possible for the fact that they don't have that element mastered to not be a factor. It doesn't slow them down.
I mean, that is the way, huh, of humans. So you use technology to master our surroundings.
Yeah.
And so they're using their bending to make the technology to master their surroundings. And that leads into Korra a little bit, because it's become so industrialized. We won't talk much about Korra. It's okay, guys. Everybody relax. It's so industrialized that it's sort of an even playing field between benders and non-benders.
Right.
Just like it would be today, kind of. It's like, you can firebend, okay. Can you write this email? Like, it's great. This is the start. The Fire Nation started it all.
Yeah.
Hate them.
It reminds you that this isn't what it used to be. This avatar that was frozen for 100 years is certainly used to a world where there was balance and everybody, stayed within their own lands and element. But it's a very different world that we're living in now. And the way he's going to need to fix it is going to have to be new. The world that comes from this is not going to be exactly like it was.
That world is gone.
Right.
I didn't realize the parallel between Aang and Captain America.
Yeah, man.
They're both frozen in
in
ice. Yeah. And they're like goody two-shoes, in a sense.
Yep.
Trying to make the world a better place.
They sure are. I remember seeing a meme on, I think it was the Last Airbender subreddit.
Bro, are you telling me this is not an original thought?
I'm sorry to say that it is not.
You missed the most important part of the interaction between Zhao, Zuko, and Iroh.
What's that, Mike?
Iroh tipped his hand, dude. He revealed his favorite tea.
Dude.
And it's ginseng, which is crazy because I seem to remember another time in the show where he says it's jasmine. He actually names a little place called the Jasmine Dragon after his favorite tea. So I'm a little confused why the writers of this show keep messing it all up.
It's a little bit tough out here, you know? It's like we were saying, 99% there, complete. It's tough.
Well, here, let's be fair. Maybe he changes his mind after this horrible encounter with Zhao. It's too much negative energy associated with ginseng tea now.
It's still his favorite
The whole time?
at the end of the episode, too. He says it again.
Shit.
Did you really mean that, Uncle?
Of course. I told you ginseng tea is my favorite.
How about when they do make their way into the...
They're way downtown,
Mm,
walking fast.
where are they in?
Are they homebound?
Like when they go to... when they go to have tea.
Where are they? They're at the docks.
It's like a tent.
Oh yeah, it's like a military tent. Like a general's tent or something. Sorry, a commander's tent.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, Zhao.
It's Commander now.
When they're in that tent and, Zhao is just interrogating him, basically. Iroh's walking around and he just knocks over everything on display in the freaking background.
You still quote that to this day. And
I
I
do.
think I've accidentally done it. Like, it's just gotten incorporated into my lexicon.
Yeah.
My
It's
fault
so good.
entirely.
My fault entirely. Yes. It's perfect, man.
Yeah, they're still, like, typecasting him as, like, a doddering old fool. But they flipped that on its head by the end of this episode. And I was really excited to see that. Because so far, he's been like, gotta eat my roast duck. And didn't show up to the fights, wants to take naps, playing his Sungi horn. Actually, he probably hasn't done that yet. But he played, like, solitary. He's been goofy, but, like, a good guy to Zuko, taught him some firebending. But they finally dig in later in the episode and show the wisdom he has to offer. And they start just by introducing him as, like, a hero of the Fire Nation. Right? That's how they're setting the seeds, and then it pays off later.
Yep. And you even see with this, he screwed up a bunch of stuff, but he immediately tells the truth, takes the blame. It's not a big deal. Nobody's worried about it.
Yeah.
It's just is what it is.
He's just so affable.
Right.
And he forgives himself, too. Like,
Yeah.
some people would...
Immediately.
Yeah.
And you can see it. It's just like,
That's how you need to live, too. Like, it's
Yes.
a great model for how to live well.
exactly.
You really
and,
shouldn't hold those things against yourself when you make mistakes that are small.
Right? Dude, I'm telling you, that was eye-opening to me. I remember that being
Oh.
eye-opening to me. I took that and I was like, you just tell the truth and it's fine. We're not going to lie anymore. Ever again, I guess.
Own up.
Yeah.
Honestly, just pledge to do better next time.
And it was better.
Mm-hmm. He didn't knock it over again, I'll tell you that much.
I'll tell you that. Yeah. And nobody gave him any crap for it because he didn't even give him a chance to. He was like, yep, it's my fault. I know it probably wasn't meant to be as big of a lesson as it is to me, but it just is
The truth will set you free.
so good. So good.
Back with the Aang gang, I wonder if this is something they overlooked, or just a little bit of mischaracterization on Appa, because they get there and Aang's like, look, everybody, this is great. We used to do this here, we used to do this here, showing Sokka and Katara. And a lot of times when they go places, Appa doesn't fit, or he just wants to sleep, you know what I mean? So he just chills at, like, the landing pad. But this is Appa's home. Like, he
Right.
lived here with Aang. Isn't he curious about... Doesn't he miss any of his old friends? Doesn't he feel any sort of way? Because he loves Aang. I'm sure he had feelings for his little playmates at the other flying bison.
Yeah.
And he had a relationship with Monkey Atso, surely.
Yeah. Having seen the show, like, I was wondering that when they were flying into the temple as well. I was, like, as excited as Aang was, I was finding myself wondering, I wonder if Appa's excited too. Because we've seen the show before and when he's lost, he makes his way to an air temple to...
Yeah, he finds the guru.
Right.
Guru Patik? Patik?
And Patik.
Guru Patik? Yeah.
Yep. And, he does things that he remembers enjoying before, right? With people or bison that he missed.
Mhm.
And here that doesn't happen.
Yeah. I'll just assume he's reminiscing, but It's a little bit of a missed opportunity there, but cut up some slack. It's early, guys. It's early.
I feel like it could have fit, but this is what it is.
They had to save room for everybody's favorite other pet of Aang, dude. They didn't have time for any characterization of Appa. They had to introduce an entirely new character, Momo.
Mike's favorite.
My favorite character. It's not my favorite character.
Nobody loves Momo more than Mike. That's literally what my note says here.
You know me, I don't like knickknacks, I don't like junk, I don't like little souvenirs, really, you know? I like things clean, simple. I do have a stuffed Momo in my room, though. One of the very few little toys I have.
Yep, hanging on the corner of your TV.
It's a sick placement, dude, don't even deny it. He's climbing the TV, okay?
Every time you point out anything Momo-like at all, whether it's the stuffed Momo on Mike's TV or mention something that Momo did, Mike will always give his best rendition of the Momo leitmotif or soundtrack.
This is a setup, dude. This is a setup.
It is. It is, you're right. It's hard to do, though, you know? D. Bradley Baker, man. He was killing it. He did like every animal noise in the show.
He surely didn't do the leitmotif for Momo, though.
You're right.
Okay.
That was definitely an instrument in all this. Who knows, though? I mean, he's got a talent.
Well, dude, where's my inspiration? Was that
That was pretty good. That was one of your better ones, I think.
Momo brings much needed levity, okay, to the show. His scenes are some of the funniest scenes in the show.
They do get me sometimes, I'll give you that.
He adds such dynamism to the shots, too. You can always see Momo in the background, like, doing little neat things, messing with people, like, playing with cats, stealing food. He's very cute. He adds whimsy to the show, you know? Like, Appa's very stoic and very, like, deeply emotional, like an elephant or a whale, you know? But Momo's a little rat. He's just a little guy, okay?
He is definitely there to screw around with everybody a little bit.
And he screws with Sokka a lot, too. Even in this, from the very beginning, he screws with Sokka.
Yeah. He initially, talking about it being only 99% complete, was supposed to be an incarnation of Gyatso.
Yeah, I remember you telling me that before, and I was like, that makes sense, because he's really smart for being, like, a little lemur.
Yeah. And everything you just said really aligns with, I think, Gyatso's way of life.
Yeah, we see him in the flashbacks, and he brought levity to Aang's life back then, too.
Yeah, and he tries not to take it too seriously, too. He still embraces and encourages the idea of having a genuine childhood.
Yeah, he says to Aang, the only mistake they made was telling you before you were 16.
The only mistake they made was telling you before you turned 16. But we can't concern ourselves with what was. We must act on what is.
He doled out a little bit of wisdom. He said that was the only mistake, but then he said, but what's done is done, and we can only act now based off of what's happened, right?
Absolutely.
Don't live in regret. Live for the now.
And they show that, too, in the flashback of Aang and Gyatso. They're not taking much too seriously. In fact, they're making their moon cakes, and they're simply making them just to throw them in people's faces.
On the other masters.
Yeah. Speaking of Momo, too, we get a whole bunch of lemurs enjoying those.
Lemur moment, dude.
Immediately.
A lemur moment. One was jumping on the guy's belly like a gorilla.
So good. The shot where we transition from Aang seeing Gyatso's statue to that flashback was just awesome.
Yeah, the fade.
Yes.
Him contemplating his old master by looking at the statue of him. Well, that's the thing, isn't it, actually? So, let me get the story straight. Monk Gyatso, it's a teacher to all these airbenders, right?
Yep.
But while he's alive, he gets a statue made of him. That seems like a bit much, no?
Dude.
Just like you have listen, in your house where you live,
Yep.
your front lawn, you have a statue of yourself, right? I get he was a great guy and all, but couldn't they wait till he died to make a statue of him?
Dude, he was just that good, I guess. Like, he probably didn't make the statue.
Definitely not. Yeah, definitely in his honor. Probably a bunch
Yeah.
of his students got together, honored him for teaching for 50 years or something.
Yeah, man. So cool. Imagine. Oh my gosh.
Being recognized so thoroughly by your community.
Right. Before death. That's the crazy part to me.
He sort of has a memorial for him in death, though, too. You mentioned that an idea they had for Momo was that he was a reincarnation of Monk Gyatso. And Momo ends up actually leading Aang to the bones of Gyatso surrounded by firebenders, which for one, that's really a badass image. Like, he's got dozens of dead firebenders around him and just him there rocking the chain
Dude,
in the snowdrift.
he went out with a bang, man. He tore up. Don't forget, like we said, Sozin's Comet was happening. And he has a room full of firebenders around him.
Oh, yeah, the comet.
Yeah.
Okay, he should get 2 statues, actually.
2 statues for sure.
I think he gets 2. Because let's not forget, Momo leads Aang there, right? It's a whole chase, and Momo ends up going there, and then Aang kind of sort of just forgets completely about Momo when he sees his dead teacher, and he loses control of himself. And that's when we get our second taste of the Avatar state. I mean, kind of third, because when he gets out of the iceberg in the first place, but whatever. Well, actually, it's just for getting into technicalities. They have the great scene where they shoot across the world to these different shrines and temples. They go to
in the different nations.
They go to the Fire Nation temple, which we visit in a later episode in this same season. They go to some cool hut in a water tribe somewhere. It starts to glow because of the Avatar state. We go all around the world seeing how the Avatar state announces how the Avatar is back.
Send word to the Fire Lord immediately. The Avatar has returned.
But the issue is, we've already had the Avatar state twice before in the show, so I don't know if that's...
Yeah.
This 1% is getting kind of big.
The only explanation I've ever really seen for this is if you look at the reasoning for what triggered the 2 main, sources of the Avatar state that we've seen. The reason that the Avatar state is triggered this time is out of emotion. Whereas our previous time where he was, underwater in a pretty threatening situation, he activated it out of defense. I don't know how much I would say that I accept that particular reasoning, but it is one, to say the least.
I'm not buying it. I'm definitely not buying it.
Yeah, that's the only theory that I've seen that has been at least worth a second thought.
Actually, allow me add something to that theory. What if it's because he elected to go into the Avatar state? Not necessarily the emotion, but going along with the fact the first one was when he got broken out of the iceberg.
Mhm.
That's reflexive. He's unconscious. That's just because they're getting cracked open. Maybe we could argue it's not even the Avatar state. Whatever. Second one, attacking Zuko. This is when he's thrown off, right? Defense mechanism. He didn't elect to go into it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Third one, he's so pissed, he goes into it purposefully. So then it triggers all around the world. The Avatar has returned. Maybe.
I mean,
He chose to do because he's so mad, right?
yeah. I mean, you have something for sure. I think it's similar in terms of how much I would accept it personally.
Well, I'm still not buying it either. So
Yeah.
how about that?
It's tough. I appreciate that they did that though, because it reminds us that the Avatar is a being that's reincarnated through each of these nations, and each nation has their own shrine, and the Avatar means so much to them too.
Yeah, in their own culture, it means something to them because each of those shrines is for, at least as far as we understand, for a specific Avatar who did great things for that specific culture, along with keep the balance and help other people.
Right.
Like Roku and the Fire Nation.
Right. Even in the portion that has the Fire Nation's viewing of the light, they're like, oh my, the Avatar has returned. Like, all of them are shocked to see it. But the shot that we get where we have some dialogue is in the Fire Nation one.
Yeah, and there's a reason for that.
Absolutely. Right. And of course, the dialogue is tell the Fire Lord now, so fast, which, contrary to, maintaining balance, that is going to fuel more efforts into undoing the balance.
Yeah. It's a shame that the shrine is being used in a way that's going to hurt the Avatar when it was supposed to be something that upheld their image.
But it makes the world feel like it's its own character, a living thing that is inherently connected to this special being in the Avatar.
Did we see Shayu?
No, I don't think so.
It's interesting that the Fire Nation monk who we get to know the best in that episode isn't in this flash forward. Maybe he wasn't planned yet.
Right, yeah. Maybe not.
He probably was, but didn't need him yet.
The old Winter Solstice Part 2.
And we'll get there, okay?
Something else about the difference in the way these temples were triggered is those two ideologies that we were talking about in terms of emotion versus danger to trigger the Avatar state are two concepts, or they're the two concepts in the pilot episode that allow Aang to control going into the Avatar state. We mentioned that you haven't seen this episode yet.
Yeah, dude, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, but something to get excited about for when you and I do see that is the Avatar state has a different mechanic to it in that pilot as compared to what it comes to have in this show as a whole.
Oh, okay. They dropped that concept after the pilot.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And I think that motivated the theory that I refer to when, we talk about the two different types.
Awesome. I'll get excited for that. We're going to do a special pilot episode after we finish the first season.
We sure are. We sure are. This will be Mike's first time viewing, too, as compared to it'll be my third, I believe. But overall, this scene, again, it reminds us about the many avatars, and we're just coming from the sanctuary, right? And they saw a whole room full of previous incarnations of avatars.
It's pretty funny. We were doing some back of the hand calculations to try to figure out how many years there was recorded history of avatars. Would we come up with 4,000 years?
Yeah, something like that.
Don't check our math.
It was a couple thousand to say the least, yeah. We were like, yep, there's got to be 40 in each spiral, each layer of the spiral. And how many layers tall does it look like? Yeah, definitely some rough calculations to say the least. That scene was after they had come from the outside and, he played his air ball. He opened the sanctuary doors.
I mean, that's got to be the most dangerous game I've ever seen, though. Let's not brush over the air ball, okay?
Dude, you're right.
Sokka falls from 35 feet in the air.
He does, yeah. That's danger everywhere. Something else about the airball game is that it was definitely 3D animated.
Yeah, the shots where the ball is moving towards us and bouncing off things.
Yeah.
They have a weird look to them.
It was almost off-putting. Again, being in analysis mode, watching this. So was the door to the sanctuary. Well,
that's something I never realized. Yeah, the door with the complicated tubes that only an airbending master can open.
Right. And that just makes sense in this world that they've established. That, of course, the Air Nomads are going to utilize their abilities to make it to where only they are the ones that can access certain areas because they're abilities that only they have.
Yeah, the idea makes sense, but the execution, did you see that weird little way it unlatched at the end? Everything was fine. Yeah. The things turned, it made pathways for air, sure. But then the end, it just there's like no physics to describe how it
Yep.
opened in the very end.
Hey, we're in a magic world out here.
They did their best.
Yeah. If it fell down instead of up, we would have been good. Something else though that just makes sense in this world is right before this, as we transition from Airball to opening that sanctuary door, is when Sokka fell off of the Airball court, if you will. He sees another Fire Nation helmet. Katara bends the snow on top of Sokka and that helmet, and as a form of protection, she, just defers what she was originally going to say to check out this new bending trick that I have. And Aang's like, yeah, cool, whatever, of course. But it reminds the viewer, right, that here we are, and we're in snow. She's a waterbender, and it's possible to bend snow. It just makes sense.
Oh yeah. And it's honestly a really good story move, I think, because not only does it get us more used to bending, it also furthers the idea that Katara's learning.
Yeah.
It further develops the idea of how compassionate and caring she is. It builds up anticipation for the final reveal of how everything's gone wrong, because he's not going to be slowly introduced. They're hiding everything from him, so there's going to be a big release at the end.
You're right. That singular action, yeah.
That one move is doing so many things for us as the viewer.
That's, what was that, 4 or 5 things?
I could keep going, surely.
Just beautiful. Yeah. But yeah, of course, as we said, we make it into the sanctuary and have our big spiral, of course. There wasn't a lot of room to add more avatars.
Oh no, that place was stuffed.
Stuffed, for sure. They had a little bit where if we'd made a little bit of consolidation, we'll fit Aang in there next.
They could get a couple more in there in the middle.
Yeah.
But after that, they're pretty much out of room.
I wonder what the plan is.
Well, I was thinking about that. It's got to be a long week of just moving statues where you just take one statue. Hopefully there's room at the top, like extra room at the top. You move it over one place, and then you go to the next statue, move it into that place. That'd take a while.
Sure would. Maybe it's just like a Avatar day type of thing that they
That's
have.
a good point. You only have to do it whenever the avatar dies, or at least whenever the new one is found. Can't make a statue of them. You know what? You probably only have to make it once they reach maturity, because they're not child statues.
They all were adults. You're
Yeah,
right.
so you got plenty of time.
Yeah.
It could just be every day they move a statue, right? It is fine. They just keep doing that all the time. It's like prayer. It's like a meditation. We move a statue a day.
That's pretty interesting, honestly. I could easily see Air Nomads doing that.
After they bake their pies, it's like, okay, now it's time to move the statue.
Them and their pies. In this sanctuary, we have a statue of Roku. And speaking of Gyatso, he knew Roku as well. And he mentions that in time, he will reveal himself to you, right? I wonder why he didn't choose to tell Aang who it is that is going to be revealing himself to him.
If I had to guess, it's probably because Gyatso had planned to teach Aang a lot more. This was just the beginning of his tutelage to become the Avatar.
I see. He probably didn't want to put too much on him too soon, you mean?
Yeah. I think probably the approach in the Air Nomads was like, take it slow and easy.
Right.
It's like the first week or whatever, Aang knows he's the Avatar.
Yeah.
What's the time frame on that?
It's very soon.
Very soon after.
Yeah.
He finds out. So it's not like he's going to be like, okay, so you're going to meet these guys in the spirit world and also this, and then you're going to have to do this. It's like, man, I wish they hadn't told you yet, but don't worry, we're going to get through this together.
He does preface it with, when you are ready,
Mhm.
he will reveal.
I think he's
himself.
taking it easy.
Yeah, that's a good point. His affection to Aang makes a lot of sense too for a second-time viewer as well, because we knew that he and Roku were friends, right? They had themselves a grand old time learning how to air glide together.
I can't wait till we get to that
Yeah.
and we can see it again, because I sort of forgot about that.
Some friendships are so strong that they can transcend lifetimes. And this is one of those bonds. And Aang doesn't necessarily get the name in that interaction that it is Roku, but when he finds himself looking at Roku's statue, he's just like, yep, that's Avatar Roku. He's the Avatar before me.
Oh yeah, even he's a little bit baffled by how he knew that.
Sokka and Katara like, you were a firebender? No wonder I didn't trust you.
Crazy.
You know, I'd usually be upset if a show chose to deliver information the way that Aang did. When asked how he knew that, he said, I don't know. I just know somehow. I'd usually be like, what?
Lazy writing.
Yeah, there's no effort here. But it's somehow acceptable to me. In this case, you know, we're learning that there are things beyond our comprehension in this world. And we were just informed in a pretty good way, I would say, that he is these people.
Yeah, that's definitely how I took it. That he has the connection to them because they are him.
Yeah.
They fleshed that out further in the series when he tries to connect with his past lives and enter the Avatar state. This is just the first inkling we see of it.
Yeah. It tears me up that I'm like willing to accept it.
I don't think it's... I feel like it just fits the pattern of what poor writing is, but it's not poor writing.
Right.
They're very clear choreographing that he has a connection to these people.
You're right. It fits the pattern and I want to come after it. But it's like, you know what?
They had a point.
You got something going here. Yeah. Then Momo comes walking in. They try to sell the idea that he's a Fire Nation soldier.
It's so obvious on the rewatch.
Yeah. But hey, it's still good.
I did want to mention how when they start chasing after Momo, it's a competition between Sokka and Aang. Sokka wants to eat him. He's starving. Burnt all the blubber. We talked about it. Aang wants a new pet. Loves riding animals. We can move on. But it's just crazy how Sokka immediately goes to like break Aang's shins. Like grabs his freaking, what do we call that? He grabs his club and swings for the fences.
Yeah.
And then rightfully so, Aang sends him sprawling with an air blast.
Yep.
But that is just a crazy move coming out from the kid.
Yeah. A little aggressive, to say the least. Then they chase him down the hallway, as you mentioned. Jump down. Aang's got his eyes watering with the wind in his face when he's chasing Momo down there. I've been skydiving, and that is accurate, for sure. Wind just coming at your face.
They don't give you goggles or...
They do give you goggles.
Nothing for the mouth, though?
Nothing for the mouth, man. I remember jumping out of that plane, and I, like, drooled. And the drool got on, like, my ear. Just from the wind coming up in my face. And I was like, oh, my gosh, this is not what I wanted to happen in my first skydiving experience. But, you know.
That's not even the strangest part of that experience for you. The first time you ever got into a plane was when you jumped out of it. That was your first time on a plane. You've been on a plane a bunch of times now. In fact, you've like eclipsed me in world travels. But at that point, your first time on a plane, you just said, nah, I'm done. Jumped out.
Jump right out. Yep. I hadn't traveled much of anywhere until, I forget, I was probably like 19 when that happened. And I couldn't have been more excited to jump out. I think the fact that it was my first time on a plane distracted me from the thought of what it's going to be like to jump out of it. You know, on my way up, I was just like, oh, wow, this is what it's like.
He gave you the wrong impression. That is not like what normal plane travel is.
Normal plane travel sucks, for sure. Just a bus.
It's just lame, yeah. It's just a bus in the sky and with a bunch of hoops to jump through.
Right. It was definitely... I'll do it again right now. I'll tell you that much.
We got to do it. We got to do it. I'm going to get some money. And we can do it.
Mike came to watch, and at the time, Mike, like, he was so afraid of heights, and he's been working on that fear since. But at the time, he was so very afraid of heights. And even then, when he saw how well they were able to get so many people up and down of these skies, he was like, you know what? I could do that. which was
I could do that. Not yet, but I could do that.
I couldn't believe what I was hearing.
Yeah, I was really afraid of heights. That was part of the reason why I decided to face my fear so thoroughly. Like, I've actually kind of gotten rid of it. I don't really have my fear of heights anymore. And it was just exposure therapy that I put on myself, jumping off of cliffs and rocks into water. Every chance I got, climbing on like jungle gyms, going up high, getting on ladders, just doing it over and over again. Finally teaching your nervous system and your brain that it's like, there's nothing to be afraid of.
Right.
You're fine. It's more dangerous to be afraid of heights and go up there than it is to just go up in the heights, because your muscles clamp up, you start shaking, you get sweaty, and it's like, this is great. Really great job, body. Like, now my hands are slippery, my knees are weak, my arms are heavy, and I'm going to fall to my death because of you.
Oh, man. That's tough, yeah. I guess you could say that my desire to be a hero prompted me from a young age to seek those things. I think that's part of the reason why I'm not afraid of heights.
You're Spidey, dude.
Hey, I wanted to be him too. But to snap back over to where Zhao, Zuko, and Iroh are, the shots here are so purposefully done, and I don't think I noticed until viewing this episode with the critical eye that we're approaching it with now. It seems that when I paid attention to it, all of the power dynamic that we saw in their previous interaction out by the boats has gone from a dialogue out by the boats to a distinct framing showing us who is supposed to be the powerful person in this dynamic. Zhao is framed to be looking down at Zuko, and Zuko is always framed looking up at Zhao, as if he's the one in control here. And it's something I never noticed before, but as we pay attention not just to that framing, but to their dialogue here and how Zhao talks about how Zuko is just unwanted and he has no respect for him. His father doesn't even want him. It's brutal, to say the least. But this whole scene finishes with Iroh asking him,
Prince Zuko, have you forgotten what happened last time you dueled the master?
I will never forget.
you know the shot I'm talking about. They slide across the whole room to Zuko's face, and it ends with him saying, "I will never forget." And that sliding shot ends with just the scarred half of his face showing on screen.
That's got to be one of the most iconic shots in the show.
So good. So good. And it's just more genius on his scar. That choice, the way they use it, it's just like, I can't get enough.
Is this the first mention of how Zuko got his scar?
I think so.
And I think it's the first mention of Agni Kai as well. They're really letting us in on some stuff in this episode. That's why we were both like, this episode is great.
Yeah, I just kept typing and typing and typing. The episodes are like 23-ish minutes long, and it took us at least 30 minutes to watch this episode because of the pausing.
Mm.
And in this scene, while they're going back and forth, Zhao's resources are on display. They, even at first, they're not directly explained to us. It's explained by his men, assuring that they interrogated Zuko's crew, right? He just kind of distracted them while his men went to go take care of that, right? And that locks in his suspicion that Zuko does know something about the Avatar and his whereabouts.
I think it's a really nice, subtle way for the writers to show us Zhao's power. He's called a commander, you know, but they're showing instead of telling. Like,
Absolutely.
Even when they told us, having Zhao say, it's commander, actually, they were also characterizing Zhao as full of himself and cocky, because he's correcting Zuko, the prince. Even when they tell, they show.
Yeah. It emphasizes his intelligence here with that. And it gives us the impression that, like, oh, he might actually get the Avatar before Zuko.
Yeah, it seems kind of hopeless for Zuko
Yeah.
because he lost handily to Aang when he was tied up. Aang literally couldn't use his hands, and he still beat Zuko and escaped. He's a pacifist, and he still threw Zuko off a ship. Zhao has a whole army, basically, under his command. And he's kind of being arrested. Zuko's sort of being arrested by Zhao right now.
And Zhao couldn't be more excited about that recipe.
Yeah, oh, he is. Oof.
He sees it all just coming back to him and him being responsible for, a couple of traitors, getting the Avatar, figuring everything out. Like, he's so narrow-minded in painting a picture of himself that is in full glory.
Everything's coming up Zhao. Except it doesn't. 'Cause he gets humiliated.
He sure does. They both, leading into that, are so, like, reckless with it, too. Like, this is a duel, as you mentioned. And we're just going to have an argument and challenge each other out of nowhere, almost. I wouldn't say it's out of nowhere, but it's just like, it's reckless.
Zhao was really biting deep with those insults, though. He's like, whose own father doesn't love him, and like, if he wanted you, he would have sent for you. You're a loser, and your uncle's stupid. That was the gist,
He
right?
is personal with it. I mean, looking at it from the outside, you're like, geez, what kind of person does such a thing?
How much animosity does he have for this teenager, bro?
Right.
Like,
it's like, dude, chill
control
out.
yourself.
Yeah. But, I mean, we certainly learn a lot about Zhao through the season, especially when we come to learn his master. And we find out why he is the way he is. And we're going to get there.
I don't believe you.
No, we will for sure. He is a personification of what fire as an element has become in this war versus what fire should be, and that we learn that it should be later on in season 3. But we'll get there.
Not only do they bring up the origins of Zuko's scar in this episode, and then talk about how it was an Agni Kai, they put one on for us. So we get to see firsthand the stakes that are involved.
Yeah.
So it's a one-on-one duel, I guess to the death if you want, but like to death or injury, where two firebenders go at each other.
Terrifying.
Definitely. It's honestly a little bit embarrassing that Zhao accepts, because one, Zhao started the whole thing by just needlessly laying into Zuko and his uncle. And then a teenager challenges you to like a duel, and you accept when you're like a trained officer of the Fire Nation military. You're a commander of a fleet. You might even have multiple fleets. I don't know.
Yeah. It's just an act of pride, ego. It is cool, though. They have it at sunset. Zuko also, having had an Agni Kai of his own already, he, as we said, for Zhao, pride and ego, he has the same reasons for Zuko to initiate this Agni Kai as well. And he survived his first one. He's like, bro, I don't care.
What's the worst that could happen, dude?
Right. I'll just get another scar on the other side.
I can see fine, bro. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I mean, he really doesn't. He doesn't have much to fear, because he's been through it. The worst happened. His father disfigured him, and then he was disowned. So it's like, bro, like, I care.
What do I have to lose? That's horrible. So sad.
Yeah, it is. That's his mindset.
Yeah.
And he needs to get out of here. This might be a calculated way to get out of Zhao's control, because it seemed like Zhao was going to hold them there.
Yeah.
But then after the Agni Kai, they are able to leave.
You're right.
I think it's because of how shamefully Zhao carried himself during the Agni Kai.
It's such a cool name, though. Agni Kai.
Agni Kai.
It's pretty serious. A cool name, a cool setting. We mentioned it's at sunset. They start with these cloths on their back, facing away from each other, kneel down.
Oh yeah, they did.
Yeah.
They're really dramatic, actually.
It was very dramatic, dude. We got our music. A lot of dramatic shots, too. They're like sliding or panning across their serious face as they prepare themselves for battle.
They're shirtless. I forgot they were shirtless.
Yeah, they have no shoes on. They're shirtless. And, we've seen the series all the way through before, and the Agni Kai at the end is just something like no other. But this is still spectacular in its own right. The firebending isn't anything extraordinary, but it's interesting to see how it's blocked. He blocks the fire blasts in a couple different ways. He'll block them away with his forearms in two different directions. He'll guide the flames across his body and then down to the ground. And Zuko does the same. He'll, as you're already miming over there, the splitting of the flame in half with a pointing of your two hands in front of you. And for me, I feel like I remember wondering how you defend yourself from flames being shot at you after seeing in the first two episodes that they just can shoot flames out of their fists. It's like, well, I don't know what I'm even doing with that.
One of my favorite parts about Avatar is how they showcase different martial arts styles through their bending. So they'll use those techniques that are meant to like redirect force, that add a little bit of flair, and they'll incorporate it with like the bending element, and you get beautiful fight scenes that look real because they're based off of real fighting techniques.
Yeah. That's something with fighting scenes in particular is every fight scene is a chance to show off something new about the power system or the characters. And you have a new chance to provide nuance to either of those things or more by choosing the two characters that you have fighting each other, right? Every new combination gives you a new opportunity to provide further insight to so many different aspects of the show.
They do not waste an opportunity to bring more characterization, to tell more about the world. A lesser show has fights that are just all flash, no substance, right? It's just for coolness factor only. This show has the coolness, but there's a depth to it.
And it connects to the fight style that is associated with the nation as well. Every fight that we get that is between two different bending disciplines provides depth in the fight style that they have as well. Especially with Aang and Zuko, yes, we're going to see airbending against firebending, but we're going to see Aang trying to dodge Zuko's many different attempts to cause harm, right? And Aang does it in different ways every single time based on the setting that we're in, because his fight style is very much dependent on his surroundings.
Wow, that's interesting to think about the layers. So their motivation behind how they're fighting in the first place is like how they were taught, so their nation, their culture. But then you get their emotional state and who they are particularly, and that's how they fight within their nation. And then you get the setting they're in that informs the way they move around and how they use their skills, and all those things are taken into account for these fights.
Yeah.
Which is why seemingly Zhao is having to use these techniques to dissipate the fire because they're in an open arena fighting, whereas when Aang fights, he uses all of his surroundings, he escapes using his quick, airbending abilities.
Yep. And it all provides depth to the world and character simultaneously. Zuko has a signature character moment in this fight with his breakdancing move that he does, right? That turns the tables. And just as it does in this Agni Kai in the beginning of the series, that same move turns the tables in the big Agni Kai at the end of the series with his sister. Not only does that breakdance move, turn the tables, but for this fight in its entirety, we find ourselves as an audience rooting for what we've perceived to be the antagonists up until this point.
Now that is an interesting revelation. I never thought of it like that.
Yeah. We're cheering for somebody that has been established to be the villain. You know, talking about the shots in the scene prior to this Agni Kai, how Zhao was looking down at Zuko. Zuko was looking up. After the end of this fight, Zuko is looking down at Zhao, who's looking up at him. Almost in a way of begging for mercy with the look on his face, you know?
Just to be devil's advocate, maybe Zhao was looking down before because he's taller than Zuko. And then Zuko's looking down after because he trips him and is standing over him with his firebending.
Very much possible. Like I was saying, it's analysis mode, and you know, some things are going to be spot on and others are going to be coincidence.
I think that one's right, though. I do think you do subconsciously establish a dominance hierarchy based off of heights like that and that sort of stuff. Like, and it fits the scene perfectly. Zhao's in charge, and then Zuko's in charge when he takes him down.
It's a beautiful ending to the fight, too. Zhao wants him to finish him so bad, too.
Do it! Do it!
We're given a second to think that Zuko actually, like, did it with the timing of their shots there.
I mean, I wouldn't have doubted if Zuko did it. This man was basically insulting him and his whole family.
Yeah, we don't know Zuko as well yet. We just know him to be bad, and that would be a bad thing to do. So it's like, all right, maybe he did it.
Yeah, he subverts our expectation and shows himself to be better than we thought. It's the beginning of his turnaround.
Even in exile, my nephew is more honorable than you. Thanks again for the tea. It was delicious.
Did you really mean that, Uncle?
Of course.
And we finally get it. Iroh shows his true colors. And that meant a lot to Zuko.
It really did. You're right.
I'm really glad the writers decided to keep in... It's like a little bit of a childish question. Like, did you really mean that? You know? But it shows... Oh my god, it shows so much. It shows how much Zuko cares about what his uncle thinks, even though he, like, disobeys him and pretends to flout all of his instruction. But he really cares about what his uncle thinks. And his uncle thinks a lot of him.
Iroh being involved at all was eye-opening to me, or maybe it's supposed to be for the audience, but it's pretty crazy to see, like, this fat old man swing in to block Zhao, who's, you know, as he says, tainting his victory.
First off, that was disgusting that Zhao did that. Like, are you kidding me? Iroh stepping in to defend his nephew is the beginning of us understanding his true character, and it only grows throughout the series. Before now, he was sort of a buffoon, well-meaning, but in this episode, he shows his skill and his wisdom and his deep care for his nephew.
We're left with an impression of, wow, he's pretty capable, and he's pretty wise, and he loves Zuko. I don't know what encompasses Iroh more than those three things. This episode finishes with the Avatar state that we started talking about before, when Aang starts floating up in the air in anger. We get this speech from Katara talking about how they're his family now. You know, and it's tough. I mean, it makes total sense to be in this devastated position that Aang is in. And what Katara says is really meaningful, truly. He, I hope, can hear her. I can't exactly tell. But my man is going through it. And it's because he's lost everyone that was ever important to him. but he's found new people that are important to him now. He still has Appa. And the next time we see him like this is in the episode after we lose Appa. Just like this. Katara doesn't say anything in the desert. It's already been made clear that they're family. Aang finds himself in that position again, though, because he feels that he's lost another big piece of his past life.
Thank you so much for listening to our podcast. You know, I didn't realize before rewatching this how much was stuffed into this one episode. It sets a lot up for the future, and I'm excited to see it pay off and tell it all to you guys. Of course, with my co-host Jimmy.
That's me.
See you again next week.
See you guys.